The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Integrating Work-Based Learning into Your College and Career Readiness System. My name is Ellen Cushing, and I'm the Deputy Director for the College and Career Readiness and Success Center. Today's webinar is the first in a series of 4 webinars focused on supporting the design and implementation of quality work-based learning opportunities for students. The CCRS Center will be hosting additional webinars throughout the summer that focus on key aspects related to work-based learning, including strategies for establishing key partnerships, collecting and analyzing work-based learning data to inform decisions, and supporting rural communities with work-based learning. Before we get started, we wanted to share a little bit about the CCRS Center. We are a federally funded technical assistance center charged with supporting state education agencies and local education agencies in their college and career readiness efforts, including supporting the development of an aligned education to workforce pipeline. We do this work by addressing key topics like employability skills, post-secondary preparedness, and data use, and by providing a range of technical assistance support to our stakeholders. Throughout today's webinar, there will be several opportunities to engage with the moderator and presenters. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can use the chat box function located on the right-hand side of your screen. You can also raise your hand to speak, and we can unmute your line. Finally, we will be sending a survey after the event where you can provide feedback on your experience. We will also be posting a recording of the webinar on the CCRS Center website, and we will include a copy of the PowerPoint slides right there on the CCRS Center site. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Marjorie Cohen, who will serve as today's moderator.
Thanks so much, Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Marjorie Cohen. I am the Senior College and Career Readiness Specialist. If only I remembered what my title was. And I have with me 3 very special presenters. From Iowa's Department of Education, we have Pradeep Kodamraju, who's the CTE Bureau Chief. We have Readiness Walker, who's the Education Liaison for both the Colorado Workforce Development Council and the Colorado Department of Education. And then finally, we have Stacy Cristelli, who's the Community Relations Program Coordinator for Parkview Medical Center. And today's agenda, we are going to talk about and define work-based learning and the role of work-based learning in college and career readiness. We're going to learn how 2 states and 1 region integrates work-based learning into existing initiatives, and then we'll identify additional resources and supports. So we're going to start by setting the context. As Ellen mentioned, this is the first of a series on work-based learning, so we wanted to make sure that everybody understood where we were coming from and what we now know. So as you may already have heard, by 2020, there's predicted to be 55 million jobs in the U.S., 65% of which will require post-secondary training. And right now, we're projected to miss that demand by about 5 million workers. But it's not the same situation across the country. As we all know, technology is changing, industry is changing, and that means that the knowledge and skills needed for employers is also changing. So workers don't necessarily need a 4-year degree, but employers do need employees with some specialized training or a set of knowledge and competencies to be prepared for the workforce. And when we talk about post-secondary education, what we really mean is, as you just saw pop up, career technology center credentials, associate's degrees, college associate, undergraduate, and advanced degrees. It's really the gambit from education and training options post-high school. So recent research shows that 99% of the jobs that have been created after the recession require more than a high school diploma. So some form of post-secondary education is the new minimum. And current domestic workforce demands employees who can fill middle and high skilled jobs. So then let's look a little bit at student post-secondary preparedness. When you look at that, you see that we have an increase in graduation rates over the last several years. While graduation rates are increasing for most students, we can see that those rates are not equal for all student populations. But when students enter post-secondary, are they ready to access the academic and technical content? As you can see here, about 20% of students entering four-year institutions require remediation. And when we look at two-year institutions, over 50% of students require remediation. This is particularly important if we recall in that previous slide that shows the greatest opportunity resides in those middle skill jobs. When we consider the implications of remediation, we know that it increases costs for students and decreases their likelihood of persistence in graduating. Finally, looking at persistence, we see that only 60% of students who enter a four-year institution graduate in 6 years. Those rates, however, are much lower for certain student populations. As you can see, it's only at 41% for African Americans and 54% for Hispanic. As we consider creating this education to workforce pipeline and better connecting students to the workforce, we must also ensure equity of opportunity for students and access to those workforce opportunities. So what do employers see as what's coming down the pike? It looks like, as you can see, that they're having challenges filling jobs that require cross-cutting skills. And we call these skills employability skills. What we mean by employability skills are that they are the general skills and knowledge that are necessary for success in the labor market at all employment levels and in all sectors. Employability skills also go by a number of different names: soft skills, workforce readiness skills, 21st century skills. In Colorado, they're called essential skills. You may have heard of them in any number of ways, but they're basically the same general set of skills and knowledge. And then finally, we should consider the student perceptions on how they feel about their preparedness for careers. A recent survey by Youth Truth, funded by the Gates Foundation, asked students about their perceptions of college and career readiness. While students were pretty positive about their post-secondary aspirations, including over 90% citing a plan to enroll in post-secondary education, their perceptions on career readiness were less optimistic. Less than half of high school students agree that their school helped match careers with their interests and abilities. And further, just over 48% know how to enter and succeed in a career that interests them. So let's think about that education to workforce pipeline. The old bifurcated system of tracking students into either college prep, which would be the academic side, or vocational education, which would be the technical side, looks like that, that circle on the left. But what we now know is that every student actually needs this trifecta of academic, employability, and technical skills. And that is essentially what we mean by the college and career readiness system. So, as it turns out, work-based learning provides an opportunity to employ and learn all three types of skills: the academic, technical, and employability skills that we talked about in that last slide. So if you look across the top, you'll see that this continuum is a developmental continuum starting in grades K through 6 and continuing through 7 through 10 and ending at the end of high school. You'll also see on the bottom that increasing individualization occurs as students connect their interests, their skills, and their goals with these possibilities. So what do we mean by work-based learning experiences? So in the early grades, career awareness includes pre-K centers, field trips, career examples in learning materials and activities, matching emerging student knowledge and skills with fields and occupations. In addition to some of those activities under awareness, we are talking about very general awareness. We're talking about not necessarily putting kids on a path too early or locking them into any one pathway. We're really giving them more information and different kinds of learning experiences. A lot of these opportunities also promote employability skills and engage students in learning, even if they don't necessarily develop students' knowledge and skills for specific future occupations. So then you move a little bit further down the continuum to career exploration. That is basically middle school time. And what we mean by career exploration is sort of these aptitude and personality assessments, service learning, independent learning projects, career exploration courses, and maybe even student stores and initiatives. And then we move a little further down the continuum and we get to high school, and we're talking about career preparation. So that includes things like project-based learning, independent learning projects, career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs, service learning, short-term internships, and student enterprises. And enterprises are things like there's a vet school at a CTE high school in Boston. And so it's sort of beyond the student store. And this is still less about identifying students' own interests and more about the purposeful reflection on the connections and application of learning. And then we move all the way down to the last few grades in high school, and we get to career training. And career training is really, again, similar projects like project-based learning, independent learning projects, CTSOs. This is where we get into semester-long internships and apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships or youth apprenticeships, and then specialized CTE courses that can make that bridge between high school and college. And so what we're really talking about today and in this series are these last two pieces, the career preparation and career training, basically what is happening in high school. And now we're going to have the first of two polling questions. So where is your state, district, or school, depending on where you're sitting, in implementing quality work-based learning? Are you at knowledge development, where you're learning about the work-based learning continuum and activities? Are you at the planning stage, where you're starting to convene stakeholders to plan? Are you at the implementation stage, where you're acting on your plan? Or are you all the way at the sustaining stage, where you're interested in continuous improvement? So we'll give you a little, 20, 30 seconds to go ahead and choose where you see your state, district, or school in implementing quality work-based learning. Zipporah, when you've seen a good number, you can see what excellent. So it looks like most of you are somewhere in the middle. It looks like 11% are in the knowledge development stage, which is great because that's what we're going to be talking about. But 43 are in the planning stages and 46 are in the implementation stages. So that's great. It looks like nobody is at that sustaining stage, which is not super surprising, since work-based learning for all students is really a fairly new idea. So that's great. That's very helpful for us. So let's talk very specifically about the role of work-based learning in college and career readiness systems. So, sorry, there we go. So who is at this sort of work-based learning table? We really want to make sure that we have K-12 education, of course. We also want to make sure that Folks from labor or workforce development are there. CTE, in some states, CTE is not necessarily part of the SEA or the state education agency. It's also important to have higher education and folks from economic development, whether that's a public-private partnership. And then definitely people from business and industry who can talk specifically about what employers are looking for. So let's talk a little bit about the definition. So high quality work-based learning definitions differ across states and agencies and national organizations. The CCRS Center actually recently did a scan of all 50 states and their work-based learning definitions. The scan showed that 28 state education agencies have formal definitions of work-based learning. 14 SEAs have informal definitions, and 9 SEAs have no formal or informal definitions. An analysis of the education agency's formal and informal definitions includes certain themes such as workplace experience, development of knowledge and skills, employability skills, career pathways, instructional strategies, connections to student plans or individualized learning plans, mentoring, and some type of wage or credit. So in addition to SEAs, the scan that CCRS Center did examined state departments of labor or workforce development definitions of work-based learning too. And our scan shows that only 2 states' departments of labor or workforce development had a formal definition of work-based learning, but most states had definitions for aspects of work-based learning, such as apprenticeship, and we'll come back to what that means and what apprenticeship is and how this fits in. So how are states using work-based learning within their vision for college and career readiness? In states and districts, college and career readiness visions are influenced by a number of different things, including federal legislation. So 3 laws offer significant opportunities for states and districts to determine how students are ready for college and career. The first is the Carl D. Perkins Act, and this is actually historically where most of the work-based learning has taken place, and that's within the career and technical education context. The second piece of legislation that you may be familiar with is ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. And in Title IV of ESSA, there is a description of a well-rounded education, which includes exploration and making connections between education and careers. And that actually is a way to think about broadening out who can participate in work-based learning beyond sort of the typical CTE students, and thinking about it more as something that all students can or should participate in. And then there is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which historically is for the labor or workforce development agencies. But that does have specific requirements in it for work-based learning, and particularly work-based learning for out-of-school youth. And then beyond the legislation, there are specific programs or initiatives that have elements that can integrate work-based learning. So 3 of these biggest trends are probably initiatives that you've heard of before. The first is deeper learning. The second is employability skills, which we've discussed, and we'll discuss a little further in a moment, and then apprenticeships. So deeper learning is essentially, it's considered to be a combination of the deep content knowledge that students still need to develop, the ability to apply that content knowledge to new and different situations, and the development of additional competencies such as communication, collaboration skills, and an understanding of how to learn, and these mindsets. And work-based learning and deeper learning have similar values, which include things like skills attainment, it's student-focused, and there's some form of integration. They also have similar strategies, including demonstration of skills, project or problem-based learning, and they are interdisciplinary. Work-based learning is inherently competency-based. We can take what we know about deeper learning inside the classroom and apply it to the academic, technical, and the academic, technical, and employability skills students gain from work-based learning, experiential learning. We've talked about employability skills, and we know that states are finding that work-based learning is one of the best ways to teach employability skills as students are learning more about what it's like to be in a business and how to use the communication and collaboration skills that they need. And then finally, we're back to apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are considered sort of the gold standard of work-based learning, partially because they are federally defined and they've been around for decades. In the last two presidential administrations, apprenticeships have actually been a big focus of the federal government. So some states have been standing up apprenticeships for many years. And many states are using new federal funds to greatly expand apprenticeships. And now that there's a focus on getting students ready for registered apprenticeships, we are starting to look at what apprenticeships might look like in high school around by way of youth or pre-apprenticeships. So these are sort of some big named initiatives that you may have going on in your state or your district or your school that can and should connect to work-based learning. So one of the ways to think about this is that all of these things require some major coordination. And a lot of these factors need to be coordinated to create an aligned education to workforce pipeline. So that includes the federal laws, the types of skills and the strategies for learning these skills, very specific types of work-based learning, and other high school related initiatives. So including the academic, employer and labor market demands, including the academic sides, the employer and labor market demands, student interest, and application of content in the real world, you end up with your college and career readiness system. And we've identified these levers that you see in our college and career readiness system bowl for aligning some of these factors into a coherent pipeline. So with that, we're on to the next polling question. And now that you've sort of seen that, which of the existing initiatives in your state or district can be leveraged for work-based learning, or would you like to see leveraged for work-based learning? Accountability in ESSA to move work-based learning past just CTE students. Expanding work-based learning in general beyond CTE. Deeper learning, employability skills, apprenticeship. We're going to give you a moment to select your the initiative you think makes the most sense in your state or district. Okay, great. Looks like we have a mix of ideas here. So 8% see the accountability in ESSA as a good way to bring in work-based learning. 42% see expanding work-based learning beyond CTE as a good opportunity. 12% deeper learning, 8% apprenticeship, and 31% employability skills. That's great. That's really helpful to know. And so we also need to understand that the key to work-based learning, no matter what initiative or program you sort of come at it and what direction you sort of come at it from, it is crucial to high quality and successful work-based learning that the program is addressing labor market needs. And there are a number of ways to do this. And I think three of the most typical are industry projections, or by way of employer surveys that maybe your workforce investment board or Chamber of Commerce has done. But the most common is by using labor market information, or LMI. So what is labor market information? LMI should include accurate data on the current and projected number of openings in specific industry sectors, as well as data on salary and any technological or policy advancements that may affect particular specific industry sectors. So LMI, for the purposes of CTE programs, is most useful when it can be analyzed at both the state and regional levels.
Rounded out as first one, made two
Many states analyze LMI on a wide number of professions, but focus most of their attention on the most in-demand sectors as priority areas for the state economy. So that seems pretty broad and vague and not concrete. At least it was to me the first time I thought about LMI. Oops, sorry. Got a little ahead of myself. So I thought we could take a quick look at an example of LMI data and how it can be used. So what we're looking at here is actually from Iowa's Workforce Development Department's Labor Market Information Division. This visualization is from the Industry Projections Data Tool. And as you can see, in order to create the screenshot, I moused over healthcare and social assistance to show you the type of data that you can find here. And you can see here that the base estimated employment is 214,355. There's a base estimated employment, which is a percent of the total. And then there's the projected employment, as well as what that projected employment change looks like. So that gives you a pretty good sense of, as it says, long-term statewide industry sector charts. It's helpful to know what direction your industry is going and to be able to see what those labor market needs are going to look like. So now I'm going to turn things over to our special guests who will talk about how two states, as I mentioned, it's Iowa and Colorado, and one region in Colorado integrate work-based learning into existing initiatives. So we're going to start with Iowa. Somehow it's not. There we go. We're going to start with Iowa, and Pradeep is going to talk to us about Iowa and Future Ready Iowa.
Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you for giving Iowa the opportunity to speak, to lead off this series of webinars. I've been a participant in these discussions and hopefully I found them very instructive, and hopefully the attendees will find Iowa's presentation instructive as well. I titled my presentation "Future Ready Work-Based Learning in Iowa," and you'll see why in a moment. But let me start by talking about the slide you have in front of you. I won't go through all of that. Basically, what this reflects is our 2-year and ongoing effort of redesigning secondary career and technical education. And what I want you to look at is underneath the intermediary networks, which is a network of 15 regional work-based learning networks in each of the 15 community colleges in Iowa that promotes the continuum of work-based learning. And underneath that, what the focus of this webinar and I'm sure future webinars is looking at project, problem, and work-based learning. I mean, we include project, problem, and in that because a lot of non-CTE who are involved in experiential learning tend to use the term project and problem-based, whereas work-based learning is much more familiar for those of us in CTE. So this is the continuum that Marjorie was talking about. What I would mention here is really the upper end, the red bars, horizontal bars that you see is where the focus has been. But the point I want to make from this slide is that that's not done in a vacuum. There's a whole building block process that leads up to that, and it reflects the different grades starting as early as 6th grade. I had the pleasure and was fortunate to visit Germany last fall and look at their apprenticeship system, and they start as early as the 5th grade to go through this continuum and end up at their apprenticeship system and just close to the completion of high school and just after that. So again, I want to stress that essentially that these are the building block to the apprenticeship, which seems to be in vogue these days, is something that we have to be cognizant about and make sure that students have a variety of work-based learning experience through this continuum. When you want to optimize a work-based learning strategy, and I participated in 2 work-based learning or 2 National Governors Association policy academies, one on building the talent pipeline and the other on high-quality work-based learning. And this slide reflects the strategy that all of the participating states were asked to focus on. And so it's defining, elevating, enhancing, measuring, and scaling. What, again, Marjorie talked just about defining, and then the different thing. I would argue right now that most states, if not all, have focused a lot more on elevating and enhancing and defining, as the polling question indicated, defining and measuring and scaling is something that is still I wouldn't say difficult, but requires a much more concerted effort. I will talk more about how I was intending to scale work-based learning as we go through this. Here's a definition. I won't go through the whole definition, but if you look at the blue marks, we in Iowa focuses on the higher end of the continuum, and we include mentorship, internships, externships, and quality pre-apprenticeship programs, registered apprenticeship programs. Iowa has focused quite extensively on registered apprenticeships and is, if not the leading state, or clearly one of the top 5 states in implementing registered apprenticeships throughout the state. This is again the definite.
Nothing one. And they have runners at 2nd and 3rd. They win. They go straight to the championship at 10. And they play ballet.
I'm having difficulty moving the slides. Okay, thank you. What makes a high quality work-based learning high quality? And the thing I want to add to the previous definition is the recognition and assessment. That, I think, has been the toughest part in defining what work-based learning or measuring what work-based learning as high quality. And what I would also say that we tend to think of apprenticeships as registered apprenticeships as high quality, but they seems to be, from the recent report by the apprenticeship Federal Apprentice Task Force, that there seems to be a sort of a dual approach to looking at non-registered apprenticeships as well.
Oh, Dylan's on third, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the Future Ready Iowa goal is, as I was talking about, this is where we're trying to scale. The goal is essentially that 70% of Iowa's workforce will have education and training beyond high school by the year 2025. And what we have right now in Iowa is we're around 58%. We need, between now and 2025, have 158,000 individuals or thereabouts have some form of post-secondary or some sort of credential beyond high school. And given an unemployment rate of around 3.5%, it is going to require some concerted effort on all the different kinds of collaborations that is needed to achieve that goal. Within the Future Ready Iowa recommendations, sorry, these are just broad areas of recommendation under Future Ready Iowa. Again, this sort of follows the continuum in terms of looking at how we can get individuals, continuum of education, how we can get individuals. The focus is on looking at career guidance, getting them college and career ready, making college affordable, providing ways in which second chance adults acquire credentials beyond high school. That's probably the area that where Iowa has to focus on. And all of this has to be done through regional alliance and collaboration. With funding tight these days, there has to be a more concerted effort to do this.
Pretty fun.
So. Okay, here are the work-based learning recommendations in the Future Ready Iowa. Basically, again, we are looking at these. We've done a lot of these under prior to the implementation of Future Ready Iowa, which is now has been in existence for about a year. We've done all of these either through the federal policies, federal and state policy. WEO, Perkins, we have a Skilled Workers Job Training Fund, as I mentioned, CT redesign, and we've done these through the NGA grants as well as the Department of Labor Apprenticeship Accelerator and Expansion grants. And so we've already done many of these or implemented these recommendations. The Future Ready Iowa brings all of this together in one single space, as you'll see from the next slide. What we are now concentrating now is on the last two statements. There is sort of making sure we ensure equity through a statewide clearinghouse, and then we explore the need for additional funding as we try to expand these opportunities.
Oh my gosh, another error. 5 nothing. 3 errors now.
I'm hearing background.
Yeah, Pradeep, I'm just gonna, if everybody could mute themselves while we're on the webinar, so that Pradeep can continue unimpeded, that would be really helpful. Thanks so much.
This is all I've done is to take this slide, this text from this last slide and put them in a graphic. You will notice that the Future Ready Iowa recommendations is in the blue in the middle, and the different types of programs that already exist within Iowa in the brown, and then the green are the different agencies that are involved in this effort, and the clearinghouse and the funding is what, as I said, would be concentrated on. And the focus, so we're trying to sort of, we've just received through the legislature some funding to begin the clearinghouse process and look at that and build that clearinghouse to ensure that that all individuals and all students have access to high quality work-based learning or project-based learning throughout the state, regardless of whether there isn't that particular project is available in the locality. So we're developing that clearinghouse through a partnership with the K-12 system, and hopefully within a year or two, we'll have that be fully functional. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm back to my first slide, and just to conclude, I wanted to talk about just what's on the horizon as Iowa moves forward to implement not only secondary career and technical education redesign, incorporating work-based learning within that, but also to look at future Ready Iowa work-based learning initiatives. We have a couple of data projects that we're looking at measuring high school experience in work-based learning, as well as post-secondary experience in work-based learning. We are incorporating apprenticeships within our program approval process. So every CTE program in Iowa, secondary CTE program, has to be approved, and we are asking them to provide us information about what they are doing to promote high quality apprenticeships through their program. We also have, as part of ESSA, a post-secondary readiness index, and within that index, there are 6 different elements to that, and 3 of the elements are work-based learning, career and technical education, and career guidance as a way of measuring that. And right now, while the weights are very small for that, we hope as we implement a system, we will move that through. And then I would just end by saying the polling question said, expanding work-based learning beyond CTE. While that is true, I would also argue that we need to sort of solidify work-based learning within CTE as well. And with that, I will stop, and my contact will be, I think which is coming, will be is on the slide presentation. So if there are any, I'll wait till the end of the presentation to hear from the other panelists, and then if there are any questions, I'll be willing to answer that.
Great. Thank you so much, Pradeep. Please feel free to start putting some questions for the panelists in the chat box. We will, unless they're clarifying questions, we will hold them until the end of the 3 presentations. But as you think of it, feel free to start adding them into the chat box. And now we'll turn this over to Readiness Walker.
Do I need to do something, or does she have it?
Nope, you should be fine. And I believe Readiness should have control.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not able to change the slides unless I'm doing something wrong. So greetings to you from the state of Colorado, and a huge thank you to Ellen and Marjorie and their team for the opportunity to share a little bit about what is going on with us here in Colorado. As Marjorie mentioned earlier, my name is Readiness Walker, and one of the interesting things is that so much of work-based learning is all about collaboration, and my role was actually created as one small part of Colorado's effort to work better together and realize kind of our statewide vision for how we want to do business differently here in the state. So I'm shared between the Colorado Workforce Development Council, which was a council of folks appointed under executive order of the governor across private industry in Colorado, and also as well across many of our state and local agencies, to be thinking together about how we really strengthen our talent development system, how we get individuals prepared for opportunities in Colorado and make sure that our businesses have access to appropriately skilled talent. So today I just want to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about how folks here at the state level see ourselves in driving systems change. I'll just point out, we've heard such great presentations from Marjorie and Pradeep in Iowa about work-based learning. And in Colorado, one of the things that we're emphasizing is that this is not just another program, it's not just another initiative, but this is really about changing our system, changing the very way that we operate and do business in our education system, in our higher education system, and even how our businesses see themselves and play a role in contributing to the future workforce in Colorado. So before I dive in, just want to share a little bit with you about what's going on here in Colorado. As with many states right now, we are experiencing a very low unemployment rate. We are at 3%. Our economy is strong, but as Marjorie mentioned earlier, the strength of our economy is not translating to all aspects of Colorado. There are some areas in rural Colorado that are lagging behind, and certain populations within our state that don't experience the same benefits of this strong economy in equal ways as it relates to unemployment. In 2016, we were acknowledged as the #1 job market within the country, and also the #3 business state for the best place to do business within the country. We have the second highest college attainment rate, and we experience something that is often referred to as the Colorado paradox, which means that we have high college attainment within our state, but that's not happening equally. There are many people who go through the education system in Colorado that don't experience that high college attainment rate. We also are seen as a national leader in workforce strategies and innovations, and one of those is some of the work that we've done to advance sector partnerships, those industry-led, regionally driven partnerships that bring together people in business, education, economic development, to be thinking together about how they strengthen what's going on in their businesses, and oftentimes are focusing on strengthening what's happening with talent development. So in short, we're experiencing a lot of benefits in Colorado, but as I mentioned earlier, there's also still some persistent challenges. And so we are really trying to identify how do we create and strengthen multiple pathways and opportunities for all of our students, but how do we also just look beyond what's happening in our K-12 system and allow for a greater opportunity and talent development to spread throughout our entire continuum, making sure that it reaches our adult job seekers as well. And how do we really address some of the skills gaps that are happening in our state? Each week in Colorado, 25,000 jobs are going unfilled. And one of the things that employers are telling us is that they're just really having difficulty being able to identify employees that have the talent that they need to continue driving our strong economy. So as we think about work-based learning in Colorado, it's important to understand a little bit of our landscape and what's going on in our current system. Colorado is a local control state. Within our K-12 system, we have just under 900,000 students that are served in 178 different school districts across the state. Within those 178 school districts, 148 are considered rural, and they serve about 15% of our students. The other 75% of students are served in some of our larger school districts in what we call the Front Range or our urban core, so some of the larger cities that are through the middle of the state of Colorado. In our higher education system, we have about 400,000 undergraduate and graduate students and 65,300 opportunity youth. Those are those youth 16 to 24. that are disconnected from either work or employment. And so thinking about, again, how do we best serve all of these individuals, whether they're students within our current K-12 system or adult job seekers. And so here on your screen, you're seeing the vision for work-based learning in Colorado. And that's really to, again, have this system shift that changes the way that we do business, that better meets the needs of our diverse economy and connects students and adult job seekers, schools, employers, civic agencies with experiential learning opportunities, training, and careers. And we see work-based learning as one type of experiential learning. And that brings together real-world experiences with academic training to strengthen results for both our individuals and students and job seekers, as well as for our businesses and our workforce. A little bit about just the timeline and evolution of work-based learning in Colorado. We know that many of the activities related to work-based learning are not new ideas. We've seen from both Marjorie and Pradeep that it really is a continuum of different activities coming together to compose work-based learning. And so this effort really started a long time ago in Colorado, but a few milestones to point out. 2010 is when the Workforce Development Council was reconstituted, and part of what we are really focusing on Colorado is having this be a business-led effort. And so shifting the way that the Workforce Development Council operated with a focus on business. Sector partnerships really lay the foundation of much of what's happening with work-based learning in Colorado, being those industry-led partnerships that are driven regionally. And so those really started to take off in 2014. In 2015, the governor signed an executive order creating the Bell Commission, standing for Business Experiential Learning. And so a commission of private industry leaders coming together with other leaders in our state to identify experiential learning gaps and develop strategy and a practice of governing and measuring how we really fill those experiential learning gaps. And of course, starting to lay the foundation for the innovations happening with work-based learning that we are implementing today in our state. Also in 2015, a package of workforce legislation was passed. The creation of my position was included in that, as well as a scan of our Department of Labor programs to identify any barriers or challenges that might hinder the scaling of work-based learning in our state. In 2016, Colorado partners with Skillful, which is an initiative of the Markle Foundation and LinkedIn, to really aid our businesses in looking at skill-based hiring. And so we see the work that we're doing in Colorado being at the intersection of skill-based hiring and work-based learning. Also in 2015, we had the launch of CareerWise. In Colorado, one of the things that we see as a strength is opportunities to bring together public and private partnerships. And so CareerWise is a private nonprofit organization that functions as an intermediary, bringing together education, business, and higher education and other training partners to really create the design parameters that will allow for the development and scaling of youth apprenticeships across the state. Currently, CareerWise is focused on in-school youth, beginning in their junior year and having apprenticeships that last 3 to 4 years that would allow them to graduate with both funding in their pocket, so they're receiving money to participate in apprenticeships, they're being paid by employers, as well as earning college credit. And so they're able to get their associate's degree as they participate in the program. And so with apprenticeships in Colorado, making sure that we're not messaging it as an either or, it's not college or career readiness. We know that both are critical. And so making sure that students are equipped with the technical and essential skills, which is what we call employability skills in Colorado, as well as the academic skills to be successful in college, if that is the route that they should choose to go to access meaningful careers, as well as other pathways that would allow them to access those career opportunities. So I mentioned again that work-based learning is at the intersection of skill-based hiring and of course work-based learning. And so this slide just talks a little bit about the role that different state agencies and some of our private partners are playing to really recognize the systemic shift that we're working on within our state. I will say that at the center of this, we know that it has to be led by employers. The role that we see employers playing is really identifying those competencies that are necessary for any type of training in order to be successful and making sure that our individuals are developing the skills that our businesses need to continue driving the economy. But we also think it's important that it's person-centered, being able to individualize to the needs of our students and their individual and unique interests and skills that they offer to the world. And then I want to talk a little bit about the role of the state. So there are a number of players, as I've been mentioning throughout my presentation, that are required for work-based learning, particularly at the state level. The role that the Workforce Development Council and the Business Experiential Learning Commission plays is one of governance and strategic oversight. Both of these councils and commissions are governor appointed. They also have strong leadership from our private industry partners, as well as a cross-system coalition of state agencies. The council thinking broadly about all things related to talent development in the state, and business experiential learning, focusing more specifically on work-based learning and identifying ways to think about how we measure and identify metrics leading to our success. Also, how do we better increase business adoption and industry engagement in these efforts, as well as how do we think about permeability, paths within our educational system that would allow students to continue learning and developing, as well as how do we think about communications, both for our programs, as well as how do we start to move public perception. And so in just a few short days, launching a public awareness campaign with both state players as well as some of the other entities that I mentioned earlier, including CareerWise Colorado. We also see the role of the state in driving a common language and understanding. So one of the resources that we've created is a work-based learning continuum, which you see at the top right-hand corner of this slide, as well as systems design. So how are we thinking about things like equity and determining what is high quality and supporting programs and leaders at the regional and local levels in really developing programs that do contribute to what is needed to drive our system and to scale these opportunities. The role of the state is also in thinking through sustainability and resources, mitigating barriers, so addressing policy and practices that might get in the way as our regional communities really do drive and stand up these efforts, and pointing the way, modeling and practicing what we preach. So modeling collaboration, emphasizing urgency, and making this a priority within our accountability systems and with funding, as well as identifying promising practices and developing toolkits and other resources to help local and regional communities scale this. And then, of course, looking at alignment and identifying gaps. And so I am at time, but just would underscore that this is a collaborative effort in Colorado. CareerWise Colorado is one way that Colorado is realizing youth apprenticeships, but there are many other ways. And I believe one of my colleagues is going to talk a little bit more about another model of work-based learning happening in one of our regions here in the state.
Thank you so much, Readiness. Colorado is doing a tremendous job, and I do want to let everybody know that the slide deck, along with the links that Readiness just provided, will also be available on the CCRS Center website. And so now we'll turn it over to Stacy Cristalli, who will take us down to the regional and local level.
Okay, thank you, Marjorie. Just to give a little bit of introduction here, I work for Parkview Medical Center in Pueblo, Colorado, and just going to walk through just a little bit of what we have going on here. We are a 350-bed facility in Pueblo, Colorado, and we are a private not-for-profit facility. We do have a level 2 trauma center, over 3,000 employees, and we are the largest employer in Pueblo, Colorado. I've been employed with Parkview since 1995 in many different capacities, but I've been the community outreach coordinator since 2006. And this is where we have implemented one of our educational programs called STEP, the School to Employment Program. Other educational opportunities that we also provide to our community, and this isn't limited to, they're just the programs that are very focused and my screen went away there. Sorry, not quite sure what's going on. But our Health Academy, we work with District 60, which is Pueblo City Schools. We have sophomores that come in and do, every 2 weeks they come and actually tour our facility. We get a different range of their likes and dislikes and try to introduce them into the healthcare field. We have well over, it could be between a class of 25 to 50 from one high school and the same with the other. This year we had close to 100 students coming in the spring semester. We also have job shadowing available to anyone throughout the United States and abroad. We do have many people that travel here to come and get some observation hours when they are applying to PA schools, graduate schools. They just find it very hard to get into anyone's doors throughout the United States if they don't have an internship program or a clinical education program. This is more of people just wanting to get hours of observation, or they're just interested in going into the healthcare field but aren't quite sure what they want to do yet. And then I also sit on a variety of various educational boards, whether it be Carl Perkins Grants, our Health Academy Advisory Board, healthcare sector in Southern Colorado, you name it. I sit on most of those boards, considering anything from preschool to pre-medicine. So I'm going to go through, skipped one right there. So the Schools of Employment program was founded in 2002. This is a work-based learning program. They don't get to actually have hands-on experience, but they get to visualize everything. They get to see everything up front with no blinders on, and in a facility our size and in our community, they get to see a whole lot. So we really are training them to have a true picture of what their day would be from getting in the very beginning of the morning to the end of their day. So far, our first graduating class was in 2003, so we've been doing this quite some time. We are celebrating 15 years, and we have just completed graduating 304 students from our program. Our program did start out very small in the beginning. We had anywhere from 12 to 15 students from 2002 to 2006. And then since I came on in 2006, we graduated 15 students per year. In the last several years, we have actually doubled our program size to 27 students per year, trying to meet the need of the healthcare fields with the nurses retiring and being able to just serve more students. We roughly get about 70 to 80 students that apply to our program every year. After our program completion, we find that we are still at a retention rate of students continuing their education into the healthcare field at 85%. We have this program that is just a collaboration with District 70 only right now. It has been this way, being that they didn't have a health academy. In 1995 is when the Health Academy was formed for Pueblo City Schools. So this program is marketed to 4 high schools: Pueblo West, Pueblo County High School, Rye, and then also the School of Engineering and Biomedical Sciences that lives within County High School. This is presented to them their spring semester of their junior year. They do apply. They are interviewed. Anyone that has a 2.8 GPA or higher receives an interview as long as they are in good standings with their school, and they have met all of the minimum qualifications. This last spring, we interviewed 74 candidates. The rotation is an 18-week medical rotation, like I said, for 27 students. We take 19 students the fall semester, and that includes 7 different medical rotations that they can go into. Once they're selected for a rotation, they are in that rotation for 16 out of the 18 weeks. And then we give them another opportunity of their second and third choice for the other 2. We call them swap weeks. This really does help them decide if this is what they would like to do every single day. They go on medical rounds, they see patients, they observe procedures, and they just get to be a part of our staff from an observatory role. We did create a second semester, like I said, a few years ago, maybe 4 to 5 to be exact. Time has moved very quickly since we've done that, and we've taken 8 additional students in the spring, and they're all in the nursing profession. So this curriculum was designed by our district in Parkview. It was a collaboration to provide the work-based learning scenario. Before I came on board, those first 3 years, it was a very clinical posed role where we had a nurse, a medical laboratory scientist, and then our staff from Pueblo District 70. And we went around to different facilities to see how we could do this and just tried it. As you can imagine, we do have a lot of liability engaged with HIPAA and confidentiality. We also do take on liability for the students if they were to pass out when they're going into an OR scenario or seeing something come in that is very different for their young eyes at 17 years of age through the ER. So we do have protocols for everything. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen all of the time, but if something does happen, we are very prepared to manage those situations. It is an experience unlike any other. The students integrate what they've learned through college in Colorado. They have their career clusters. So they know that they're interested in healthcare. The large majority of these students are also around because they've been affected by some sort of healthcare crisis in their life, or they just have a calling where they want to help people. We integrate in weekly journals so we can monitor what they're actually getting to see and do. I do not hover over the children while they're here. I do have an assistant as well that helps me with the students. When they come in on Monday morning, we take them to rotation, and then the rest of the week they're on their own until they change to the following rotation. They have 4 seminars incorporated in their semester where we take them through our college systems here at CSU Pueblo and also Pueblo Community College. We do a Parkview Caring for You Day to teach them how to apply for jobs, whether it be here or anywhere else, depending on where they're going to school. And we really give them that opportunity to see what's out there. They conduct 3 interviews with staff that they're interested in interviewing to brush up on those skills, as well as they are also receiving mentor evaluations that they have to choose their mentor for the week and then be evaluated and read their recommendations. At the end of the year, they do a final project. We used to do an iBook where the students would create an iBook that was 35% of their grade, and it was basically on their 18-week journey. We have changed that this last year on doing a design thinking innovation, and they were quite impressive this year. After 18 weeks, we wanted to see what their eyes saw in our facility and how they would improve it and give us some suggestions on how to do so. They are volunteering within our facility with 20 hours during the summer. They receive over 104 observation hours within the 18 weeks. And then this year, we did incorporate some college credits through Pueblo Community College, HPR 100, which is the Intro to Health. As soon as the semester is over and completed and they have passed, they receive a 3-credit college credit. And then they also receive an HPR 104, which is Health Career Options and Readiness, which is a 1-credit class with a medical terminology. They do receive a letter grade. We are incorporating also a pre and post testing to earn a certificate of proficiency from the National Consortium of Health Science Education. This is the first year our students did that. It is quite rigorous. Some of the standards include academic foundation, communications, systems, employability skills, legal responsibilities, ethics, safety practices, teamwork, health maintenance practices, technical skills, and information technology applications. There also is a bill, with the HP 16-1289 reimbursement for qualified programs. There are 18 areas of healthcare science that they could apply. Their second semester where Pueblo School District 70 will reimburse for the classes such as phlebotomy, CNA, EMT basic, and there's quite a few others. Like I said, there are 19 areas that they could go into just in the healthcare. And then upon upon graduation, there are employment opportunities. We're actually getting ready to host next month for all 27 students, if they are interested, an interview with possible job offers. Some of them we have already hired. We have one student that was pre-college that's in the nurse extern program at CSU Pueblo. We've hired on several others, and they just graduated last week. And in the next couple of weeks, we will bring them through, and we've asked our staff to post any positions they feel comfortable having the students apply for to help them along with their continuing their education into the healthcare field. So in a nutshell, we've been doing this for a long time. It's a lot of fun. You do need a dedicated person to this. When I was hired into this position in 2006, this is the only thing that I did. I wear many other hats within our community as well. But the students are very near and dear, and if you wrap your arms around them and give them that opportunity, it really does solidify for them that opportunity for them to move forward in their career or not waste any time or money and pick another career down the road and save them a lot of heartache. We are very blessed to have had this program and this relationship with District 70. We are very unique. Then a couple of years ago, Governor Hickenlooper did visit our site, and we had about 30 students, whether they were in college, employed here, or that were still going to school, and he got to round robin ask the kids what their thoughts were, and it was very intriguing to hear their responses, and it really helped to push them to that next level.
Great.
If you have any questions, you can just ask me at the very end.
Sure. Thank you so much, Stacy. Really appreciate you walking us through your program. So we've gotten a few questions, and we have a few minutes left. We've gotten actually a couple of questions for Pradeep and Readiness to talk a little bit about the kind of student level measures you're using to determine impact, or or what you're asking your districts to collect on a student level around data and how and then the question is sort of how do they gather it. So Pradeep or Readiness? Did we lose you?
No,
Okay.
I had to unmute myself.
Excellent.
Sorry about that. Let me sort of say a couple of things. One is very quickly say that on the post-secondary side, we actually collect in courses the hours, contact hours that student spends on work. It's called work experience. It's much like how many in the classroom, how many in the lab, etc. So we do have that information. Actually, I'm trying to do some analysis with that data using and trying to find out the extent of participation, work-based learning. At the secondary level, and we haven't done anything on this as yet, but there are most secondary level folks use SCED codes. And in the SCED codes, within each of the different areas, and I'll focus on CTE, for example, you have welding, you have different kinds of welding SCED codes, but among that, there is a SCED codes that identify work experience courses. And now I cannot vouch for the quality of that. We have now a data set of 5 years of secondary CTE students and taking course level information as well as other information, and we're going to start doing some analysis on looking at those SCED codes and what the extent of work experience participation is in that. But to answer the question, right now, I think I would argue that in most states, measuring work-based learning is tough because most of the information resides in one-off systems and not within the statewide database, whether it's it's the SLEDS, the statewide longitudinal data system, or any other type of statewide system. So measuring work-based learning is still a formidable challenge as we move forward.
Sure. Readiness, do you want to add anything?
I would just stress what Pradeep just shared. It is a challenge and just kind of a topic of growth for Colorado. Currently, especially with us being a local control state, there's nothing that we're requiring at the state level for districts to track explicitly related to work-based learning. It also has not been explicitly spelled out in our accountability system. I will say that within our graduation guidelines, the state offers a menu of options that districts can choose from to demonstrate that a student is ready to go on to what's next. And so there's a number of different ways that districts are really proving that students are ready. And so utilizing industry recognized credentials or credentials from work-based learning to prove those as one of the indicators on that is something that some districts are exploring and playing around with. Capstones are also another way. And so right now as a state, we're more in an, we're looking at this as an enabling factor. So trying to remove barriers that would prohibit districts from collecting that information, but there's nothing that we're requiring at the student level for districts to collect related to work-based learning.
Great. Well, thank you. I want to be really respectful of time, and we are officially a minute over. I think I want to thank everybody who did send in some questions, and we can certainly send those on to the individuals you would like to ask the questions and see if they will answer them. I want to thank our three presenters, Pradeep, Readiness, and Stacy, and for all of you who joined us. Again, this recording and the PowerPoint slides will be on the CCRS website, and after this officially ends, there will be an evaluation that we would love for everybody to take. It should only take a few minutes. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you again on June 25th for the next in the series. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you.